been sold the idea that financial independence is all about some number on your account statement, or even worse, that you don't qualify because of where you started out. That's just not true. It's not about some well-kept secret of the wealthy. It's about finding the right information and knowing how to apply it. On the Get Ready for the Future show, we're answering your questions so you can start making real financial change today. The journey to true financial independence begins right here, and it starts with you.
Welcome into another edition of the Get Ready for the Future show. We are glad to have you along from the 6th floor of 3 Financial Center in West Little Rock, Arkansas. My name is Scott Inman, GenWealth co-founder Janet Walker with me today as we get set to answer your questions for the next 30 minutes. And if you have a question, you can reach out by texting or leaving a voicemail to the number 501-381-5228. Again, it's 501-381-5228. Anything financial related, whether it's the markets, whether it's investments, retirement, Social Security, whatever is on your mind, we want to hear from you. And we've got 4 questions teed up today to talk about. Before we get into that, I do want to recognize a quick thing as we record this show live on a Wednesday. It's the last day of April. I said that out loud and it kind of didn't make sense to me, but it is true. We are recording this live, right? So the radio version of the podcast you'll get later, but we're live streaming on Wednesday, April 30th. First of all, hard to believe April is now about to be in the rearview mirror, but we did have some economic news come out today, a negative GDP report. So gross domestic product for the first quarter was negative, and that has rattled markets, at least today, and we're addressing that. Is it as bad as it sounds? Well, we always tell you here on this show, it is never as good or as bad as it may seem, and we dive in beneath that headline GDP number in this week's Fastest 4 Minutes in Finance. If you're not a subscriber to that video, first of all, let me tell you what it is. It's a quick video that is delivered directly to your email inbox every Friday morning, and it is our promise to you that it will be 4 minutes or less, hence the name, Fastest 4 Minutes in Finance. And we're always talking about investments, market, economic news, retirement-related topics. So if you want to get that delivered to your email inbox, you can text the word FAST to 501-381-5228, or you can visit fastest4.com to sign up. And again, we're not going to blow your email inbox up with a lot of emails. We just want to be able to get that to you every Friday morning so that you can stay up to date and really kind of go beyond the headlines. I think this is a great example, Janet, of how important it is to have some perspective, because a lot of people are going to see that the market went down today. Yeah. They're going to see that the GDP number wasn't great, and their fear can quickly set in if you're just looking at the headlines.
It can. And so this is one of the reasons that we are so education-driven at GenWealth and always have been, that something happens and people kind of tend to panic personally, which I understand. Mm-hmm. So we want to get these are the facts out there, but then also give you the opportunity to process, all right, what does it mean for me? Mm-hmm. Because the market may, the market will do its thing. What is the impact for you? And frankly, depending on your stage of life and how you're invested, it may be zero impact for you, especially long term.
Yep. Our desire here is to help people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. It is more than our desire. It is our mission statement here at GenWealth. So everything that we do is to focus on educating you to make the right decisions to reach true financial independence. And that's where we come at the answers to these questions as well. So as we dive in, let's go to our first one. It's from Andrew from Greenbrier. And he writes, I'll be turning 40 soon, and I have 2 kids, 12 and 8. I haven't invested in a 529 yet. When does it make sense to invest in a 529, or should I keep investing in an after-tax investment account? Andrew, great question. It's one we get all the time in a client meeting room. And I think the first place to start here, Janet, is when he asks, when does it make sense? Well, first thing we need to do is make sure Andrew is on track for his own financial independence.
Yeah, Andrew, I think you were positioning that as when does it make sense to do a 529 as opposed to non-qualified investments where it doesn't get any special tax treatment. But we would look at the question first of, are you on track for your retirement? Because here's the reality. When your children get to college age, if they do decide to attend college, then there are scholarships and grants, and we don't really want them to have to get student loans, but it is an option if they need to. When you get to retirement, there are no scholarships or grants or loans to get you through your retirement. And so we've got to be sure that you are on track financially. And many times, frankly, Scott, that's hard for us as parents to feel like we're putting ourselves before our children. But I'll tell you, it is actually putting your children first to be sure that your retirement is funded. I remember years ago having a conversation with there were some parents in the room, and their child was out in the lobby, and we were talking about, this wasn't relative to college education planning, but it was relative to their retirement over the kids' preferences. And I told the parents, I was like, seriously, if you guys would just stop going to Starbucks, like, you would be on track for your retirement. And the mom laughed, and she kind of flippantly said, well, tell that to the kid in the lobby. And so we got up and left the appointment, and we went out, and I got down. She was 11 years old. I got down where I was face to face with her, and I said, hey, I have a question. When you get through school and you have your own place, you have two choices. Would you like, in the meantime, would you like to keep going to Starbucks, and then when you've got your own place and your mom and dad are ready to retire, they can move in with you? Or would you like to stop going to Starbucks and they can live at their place in retirement and you can live at your place? And she looked at her mom and said, Mom, we don't need to go to Starbucks anymore. I mean, just like that, it was done, and they thought it was going to be a big deal for the kid. So kind of the same thing on this college planning. Yes, we want you to be able to help your children, and we want you to be able to do that, but let's be sure that you're on track for your own retirement. So, Scott, let's talk about some details now on the 529.
Yeah, so I think for me, it is about two priorities. Do you want the tax benefits as far as which way to go here, whether you go the 529 route or you go the after-tax investment account? If you want the tax benefits, the 529 has a lot of those. So let's talk a little bit about how that works. And Andrew, you may be familiar with that because you seem pretty well versed in the 529. But when you say when it makes sense, for the rest of the audience and for Andrew, the tax benefits here, depending on the state you live in, and here in Arkansas, there is a $5,000 tax deduction per spouse. So for the household, you can get a $10,000 state income tax deduction for the contribution up to $10,000. So every dollar that you contribute into a 529 up to $10,000 if Andrew is married and files jointly would be tax deductible and help him out now. And then when those funds are withdrawn, if they're for qualified education expenses, they will be tax-free. So you have tax-deferred growth and tax-free withdrawals if they meet the qualified education expense. So if you know these dollars are going to be used for education, then certainly there is a huge advantage to going the 529 route. And there is more flexibility, Janet, these days in the 529 plan that there hasn't been since it's been around.
Yeah, so historically you've always been able to transfer an unused balance to other family members, and it doesn't just have to be siblings. The list is pretty long. Cousins, you name it, are on there. But what we like now that has been added in recent years is the ability to actually change this over and convert it to a Roth. You can't do it with the full amount if you've really fully funded your 529. You have a lifetime limit on this rollover from a 529 to a Roth of $35,000. And in any given year, what you're able to do is whatever the maximum is for a Roth contribution in that year. So if like this year the maximum is $7,000, then that's what you're looking at on that cap currently. But this is a tremendous opportunity. If you talk about setting your children up for success, you've set aside money for their college expenses, and maybe they don't use it because they go to trade school, or maybe they don't use it because they got scholarships that fully covered everything. For whatever reason, if they don't utilize this, you have the ability to then take that $35,000 portion of it over time and set that aside as a Roth, and that is also setting them up for success in their retirement. Scott, when you think about the power of compound interest from the time that somebody is, let's say, 22 years old, so they're past college age and they decided they're not going to use the rest of this, then taking that amount of money, between that age and the time that they retire is incredibly powerful. You've really given them a good foothold on retirement.
Another piece of flexibility in Arkansas, they actually changed the law a few years ago that you could use it for private school before college.
Yes.
So that would actually be another option for you. But being able to transfer to another beneficiary, being able to roll it into a Roth IRA, and being able to use it for more reasons certainly has made the 529 more attractive. But it doesn't have the range of flexibility that you would have in an after-tax investment account, because as you might understand there, you can use it for whatever. So you can use it for a down payment for the first house for the child. You can use it to purchase a car. Whatever you want to build savings up for your child, it would be there for them with no strings attached. Now, a lot of people will opt here for an UTMA, Uniform Transfer to Minors Act, sets up an account for minors to be able to become the owners of the investment account at the age of majority, which is in Arkansas 21 years old. I'm not the biggest fan of that, because when you do hand those dollars over to them, you have no control of it anymore.
I mean, if they want to go, backpacking through Europe, then that's what they're going to do. And I, by the way, I did that for one summer, but it was on my dime, Right. So there's a lot to be learned there, but I don't think that most parents want to have the money utilized in that way. Yeah.
So I think there are some choices here for you, Andrew, but I do think the best tax advantage is the 529. Certainly recommend sitting down with an advisor, building your plan for financial independence, and then see how contributions to a 529 or to an after-tax investment account might fit into that for your children. It's great that you're thinking about it, and if they're 12 and 8, you've still got some time to get some growth on those dollars, and they should be invested in different ways, by the way, for the 12 and the 8-year-old because of the time horizon there. I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content you can't find anywhere else to help you discover, protect, and share true financial independence. All you have to do is search for GenWealth Financial Advisors on YouTube and find our channel there, which is where we live stream our show every Wednesday morning at 11:30. So you can catch that as well. Up next on the Get Ready for the Future show, we've got a question from Gary via email. Been listening to the show for a while now, and I've got a quick question. I've mostly invested in stocks for growth. Now that I'm in my 60s, what kind of shift should I make to keep up with inflation? It's been on my mind more and more lately, and I'm worried about running out of money after I retire. Gary, you're certainly not alone. This is probably one of the most common concerns that a pre-retiree might have. You have been really good at accumulating assets, being in a growth strategy. Most of the time, if you have access to an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k and you stay consistent with your contributions and you're in the right type of investments, that's going to work out well for you. But when you reach the retirement red zone, which is what lots of people call it, including us here, we define it as inside of 10 years from your projected retirement date, the game changes. I've used the analogy of a football game. I'm a big football fan, big Arkansas Razorback fan, and if you think about the way a football game is played and where the red zone is in a football field, it is inside the 20-yard line. And I've talked to offensive coordinators on multiple occasions. They will tell you that the play calling is a lot easier when you have the whole field to work with. Mm-hmm. But when you have 20 yards or less, you have less room and your play calling changes. Your play calling gets more focused because of the place on the field you are. And Janet, the same is true with the retirement red zone.
Yeah. Well, and going back to the football analogy, think about when you first get the ball and you've got, let's say 80 yards to go. If you fumble at that point, okay, we haven't used the entire drive. We haven't used a lot of time on the clock. You've still got time to get the ball back and score again later. If you have worked so hard on, however many minutes long of a drive, and then you fumble on the 2-yard line, you're sick about it. Yep. And the same thing is true of your retirement planning. Like, Gary, you're in your 60s. We can't fumble at this point. It's very important that we make the right moves. So if we walk through and kind of talk about what are some of the risks, what are some of the things that could cause you to fumble at this point, and one of them, just from the verbiage in your question, one of them that I'm concerned about is how you have your assets allocated. You've said stocks. You might have meant individual stocks, as that would imply, or you might have meant like stocks inside of mutual funds. If it's just stocks, we would question like how much diversification do you have? Do you have as much diversification as you need to have? And then also kind of going along the diversification again, if it's all growth, and that's really where your question was going anyway, so I'm glad you're thinking about this, we do want to begin to have some pieces, some segments of your assets that are not growth oriented. You don't want to come out of that completely, because you do still need to be able to keep up with inflation throughout your retirement. So even if you were to retire today, you still need some of your assets that are going to be growth oriented to get you that ongoing growth to keep up with inflation and outpace it. But you don't need all of it there.
How many times have we had a prospective client come in for their first meeting and tell us, I was going to retire this year, but the recent market downturn, I don't think I can, right?
Countless times.
Because of the focus on the overall account value,
right,
the single number. And certainly if Gary is invested mostly in stocks, this recent volatility may have him thinking the same thing because that account value has gone down. So to Janet's point, diversification can help really dampen the volatility and the drop in your overall portfolio. That's the first piece, because volatility can certainly take a big piece out of your portfolio if you're solely in growth. A lot of people get frustrated with diversification when the market's shooting straight up, right? Because it's not doing the same thing as the index is. But when it's going down, that index, diversification really shines. And we've seen that since the beginning of the year. So there's that first piece to diversification. But then the other piece is taking the complete focus off of the account value and creating a specific income plan to determine your retirement age, your income needs and wants, and having that plan in place and understanding and even expecting that, as you talked about, the inflation adjustment buckets, the growth buckets are going to move. They're going to be volatile. It takes your focus on and puts it on the right thing.
We'll do another sports analogy here. When you talk about going from accumulation to distribution, so all these years you've been putting money into your retirement plan, and frankly, most people can be successful at that. You're adding money, you're buying more shares of whatever it is. The account balance over time is going to grow, just give it time. But you are about to, in the not too distant future, switch into distribution. And this is like if you were to take the rules of basketball and try to use the basketball rules in football. So when you're going from one end of the court to the other in basketball, you have to dribble. You get in trouble if you just carry the ball. You have to dribble. So that's the accumulation period. Now we're switching over to football. I suggest you not dribble, because that's now called a fumble.
Right.
So
And it's not going to work out well to try to dribble.
It's not. The ball's not even made for it. So
Right.
So the point is, the rules of the game has changed completely from accumulation to distribution. And I think that a mistake that many people make as they are entering retirement is they continue to look at their retirement accounts as though they're playing the same game, and they are absolutely not.
Yeah, so once a plan is in place, Gary, we can create an investment strategy designed to accomplish the goals in the plan. And we've got a graphic to kind of show you generally how that gets done. The implementation of the investment strategy is what we call a bucketing strategy. You use near-term money will be invested in more conservative investments because we know we're going to be using them very soon. So we can't be exposed to the market in money we're going to use in retirement in the near term. This is called sequence of return risk. If you're in those growth stocks and you're getting ready to sell some of them to use that as cash, and the market goes down like it has in April, then you're going to be in trouble. You're going to deplete those assets quicker.
Scott, while we keep the bucketing strategy up there, I want to say this is not the same as a 60-40 allocation. I could see where somebody might look at the buckets and go, well, there's 40% conservative over there. Okay, I'm doing that because I've got 60-40. It's absolutely not the same because we're not withdrawing from the overall portfolio. That distinction in drawing only from the conservative buckets is a game changer in the overall impact on your retirement assets.
Yeah, you think about a typical 60-40 portfolio, oftentimes those withdrawals are just pro rata. They're taking a piece of each investment, so you'd still be pulling from a growth investment, and that could still be subject to sequence of return risk. So then you have more moderate strategy for the middle bucket there, and that's typically you can think of these buckets as 5-year increments. So about 10 years into your retirement, you're going to be spending from the moderate bucket. It won't be moderate at that time because we will continue to waterfall down. You'll always have the conservative investments to be able to take the risk off of your current income. But you will also always have those growth buckets because that's how you outpace inflation, as Janet mentioned a moment ago. And then we have longevity risk as the third big risk to retirement. And so we know there's a bucket out there at the end that we don't run to zero. This plan would typically run for a client at GenWealth to age 90, but there's money at the end of that plan so that we can reset. And there's also attention paid to guaranteed income sources because those are income sources you cannot outlive, whether that's Social Security, whether it's a pension, or whether it's something from an annuity. You want to have enough guaranteed income to make sure your basic lifestyle needs are met. So those are the basic pieces, Gary, there that I would throw out as to answer your question. But ultimately, you need to make a plan that has all those variables taken into consideration and put it on paper on purpose, and then create the investment strategy. And that's how we'll know how to change potentially your portfolio. Congratulations, Gary. We're going to name that our question of the week. We want to send you a Get Ready for the Future Show tumbler for being the question of the week. We just need you to email us and claim it. You can send the email to show@getreadyforthefuture.com. Moving on to Anthony from North Little Rock. I'm 62, and the closer I get to retirement, the more I feel like I get bored pretty quickly, considering part-time work or freelancing in retirement for extra income and social interaction. How could that affect my Social Security benefits and taxes? This highlights a common theme, Anthony, among retirees. More and more of our clients are not doing a full stop from work. They're finding something they like to do, and it's because they want to do it, not because they have to do it. Because again, we talk about it all the time. We're trying to get our clients to achieve true financial independence. That may or may not mean retirement. It may just mean you're working because you want to, not because you have to. So you need to determine, first of all, Anthony, are you financially independent? Because that opens up the world to you in terms of not having to make a certain income. In fact, there's a survey from Mass Mutual that I looked up real quickly after we saw this question come in that says 33% of retirees do feel lonely sometimes, and 38% of pre-retirees think retirement should be a shift to a new type of work or a fulfilling purpose. And we say it all the time, Janet, well, you have to retire to something, not from something.
Yeah. In fact, we've even coined a new word for this a few years ago. We started calling this work-tirement because it started becoming more and more common, and we thought we need a word for this. So at GenWealth, we refer to this as work-tirement. And again, we want you to be in this position if you want to work and not because you have to. So we're very focused still on your financial independence. But let's talk about some of the benefits, Scott, of working part-time. You've got sometimes physical benefits just because there might be some physical activity in whatever type of job you have. But obviously the cognitive benefits of just keeping your mind active, and you have socially, you've got the benefit of having coworkers that you're interacting with. So there are a lot of good reasons that are good for your overall health to continue to work to some degree. And, for some people it is actually working for pay. For some people it's volunteering. But that activity, regardless of whether you're being paid for it or not, that activity is very healthy for you.
Yeah, and to the second part of his question, or really the main part of his question, how will it affect his Social Security benefits and taxes? When it comes to Social Security, if you're already receiving benefits, so you have to be 62 to receive benefits, if you've already turned on your Social Security, you have to be careful about how much income you make. There is a limit to your earnings if you have claimed your Social Security benefit prior to your full retirement age. And this year, in 2025, that limit is $23,400. If you make more than that, if you have earned income above that limit this year, and you are not full retirement age and you are receiving your Social Security benefit, you would lose $1 in benefit for every $2 you make above that limit. So it's a severe penalty. They don't really call it a penalty, but it is. It is a penalty for making too much income if you are retired or if you are taking your Social Security benefit prior to your full retirement age. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat that, because people have asked this recently, the year that you retire.
Yeah.
So if you retire mid-year, because a lot of people do retire mid-year, the earnings limit is actually prorated monthly. So if you retired in the middle of the year, the income you made at your job prior to retiring and taking that Social Security benefit would not actually work against you. But once you reach full retirement age, you can make as much as you want. So I don't think we found out. We didn't hear Anthony. Oh, he is 62. Okay, so he's born. That would put him. He's got to be 1960 or later. So his full retirement age would be 67. So once you've reached age 67, all bets are off. You can make as much income as you want. Now, the taxation side, Jane.
Yeah, so Social Security benefits are not fully taxed at the federal level. So you have 50 to 85% of it that would be taxable at whatever your tax rate is at that point. And then in the state of Arkansas, they are not taxed at all on the state level. So that's a look at the taxation on it. Before you retire, though, I think that it's very important before you leave your current full-time position. I think it's very important to sit down and put together a retirement income plan, because part of this is probably also about, like, do I want to have supplemental income? Part of it is a lifestyle choice, but part of it is also, do I want or maybe even need to have supplemental income? So I think it's critical to get that plan together. Scott, I can't tell you how many times, just in my personal experience, not even firm-wide, there have been people who have come in and said, I don't have very much. We got started late. We had this crisis or that crisis, and they kind of slip their statements across the table from us, and then we talk about how much income they're going to need. And when we go through the math of it, we're able, even in that first meeting, to say, look, we're going to handle the details of it later, but I can already tell you, you have enough to retire. You've had that experience countless times as well. So I feel like there are a lot of people who approach retirement with this level of timidity and fear that they just don't think they're going to be able to make it, when we know that the math is actually very different. So if it is, Anthony, as you stated, if it is about being bored, then okay, pursue employment. But even before you do that, I would still get the numbers on paper. We need to be sure that you are on track before you pull the trigger on your full-time job.
We have one more question before we leave you today. It's from Drew in Mayflower. I'm 46 and maxing out my employer match at my job. They match up to 5% of salary. I don't really know where to go from here. I feel like there's always 15 places for me to put my money, and I want to find the balance between living my life now and having enough in the future. Thoughts? Oh, we've got lots of those, Drew. Thanks very much. Hey, I'll put some personal thoughts on this. I'm a big believer in balance. I'm a big believer in not living like a pauper now and enjoying your life now, but it does have to work within the context of the plan, because you still want to make financial independence. So if you can do both, if you can live the way you want to live now and have the lifestyle you want while still funding your retirement, of course there's room to do both. You know, I think of this story that is very personal to me. Back in 2004, I was 31, So I was, well, he's a little older than me. Drew's 46, but I was kind of in that same thought process. How much do I save for retirement? But I want to enjoy my life. I got young kids. I want to go on vacation with them. And my dad got colon cancer, right? And I was also reading a book that a coworker had given me called The Millionaire Next Door, and it was talking about the average millionaire in this country. Who are they? And they live well beneath your means, which I'm a big proponent of as well, but they shopped at Sam's and got their T-shirts, right? Like they really penny pinched to get where they were. So I was faced with this dilemma in my mind at that time of looking at my dad, who, by the way, survived, and he's still with us at 81 years old. But at the time, he was faced with his mortality, and that caused me to look at my mortality and think about I could deny myself fun in my 30s and never even get a retirement, right? Because there's no guarantee of tomorrow. But again, ideally, Janet, you want to be able to do both.
Yeah. So part of that, sometimes, Scott, it's about how much income do you have, and do you have the ability to increase your income? You and I have both done that at different points in our past where, okay, we were at X amount of income, and we went, you know what, if we're going to do all of these things, including reach our true financial independence by a certain date, then we need to have more income. And so that's a possibility as well, but it is all about balance. And so being able to sit down, again, with an advisor and walk through, these are the things that are important to me, Drew, from your perspective. So talking about being able to retire on whatever your desired timeline is and what your income looks like, and knowing from that conversation and the calculations that are done for you by an advisor whether or not you're on track, then that gives you the freedom to kind of, okay, now what? And to prioritize. When you say, I feel like there's always 15 places for me to put my money, I get it. 3 of them are kids, I understand how that goes. But then you get to, as you put this on paper on purpose, you get to go through and go, okay, yeah, there are 15 things, but these 10 are the most important to me. And these 10 I'm going to put in this sequence and prioritize those dollars moving forward.
You talked about freedom, and I think in my mind what came to mind was planning equals freedom, right?
Yeah.
The plan in place shows you what's happening in all aspects of financial independence, and you're tracked towards that, and it gives you the freedom to spend the rest of it in the ways that you want to spend it. We're assuming your number one reason for saving and investing is to become financially independent because you're putting into your employer plan. And by the way, congratulations for getting the full employer match. The data says there's a huge percentage of Americans that don't do that. But let me put a little meat on the bone here when it comes to making that plan. With that retirement date and income you need and want, with those variables being inputted, that will allow us to tell you the asset level you need to reach, that you need to achieve. And that allows us to back into the contributions that we need to make. So maybe you're already on track for the financial independence you want. Maybe you need to increase your savings, but you will be then able to make those decisions once you see the goals are in place. And we can then evaluate if you do need to make more contributions, where those contributions need to be made. Do you want to increase the pre-tax 401k contributions? Do you want to go towards the Roth 401k if it's available from your employer, or to a Roth IRA outside that plan if you're eligible? So once it's in motion, as you mentioned, Janet, it's the freedom to choose some of those other 15 places.
Scott, I think I'm going to go ahead and roll into final thoughts here. We're a little bit before the bell, but I'm going to go there. I am a rebel. Starting to grow my hair out and everything.
I bet that Casey could ring it a few seconds early if we. Yeah, there you go.
He's that talented. He's good.
It's official now.
He's good. So, my final thoughts. Think about today. We've covered a wide range in age. We talked to Drew in his 40s, and we had somebody in their 60s. We deal with a very wide range of clients at GenWealth. We help people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. So maybe you're in discovery mode. Maybe you are somebody in their 20s who's just gotten out and gotten on your own, and you're like, oh my gosh, they handed me this plan at work and they said it was a retirement plan. I have no idea what this even means. I don't know what a match is. It's okay. we have a place for you. And then we have a place for somebody who's kind of, middle-aged, and they've figured out some of those things, but they've still got to tweak some of the finer points. And when you're getting into that time of retirement and through retirement, so from cradle to grave, if it involves your financial independence, it should involve a plan personalized for you on paper, on purpose, so that you can make these adjustments and find balance in your life, and you can tell your money what it needs to do for you instead of being held captive by it.
We had a client dinner earlier this week, and we were talking to a couple of the couples that were sitting right next to us, and they talked about the radio show was one of the main reasons that they called and made an appointment.
Yeah.
And they had, both of those couples had listened for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for my final thought that a lot of you listening or watching have been doing that for quite some time, but have maybe been hesitant to set that appointment. Now's a great time to put some of these pieces in place and get your plan for true financial independence. It is easy to get the ball rolling and walk through the GenWealth Ready to Retire process. You can call us toll-free, 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526, or email show@getreadyforthefuture.com. And that's all the time we have for this week's show. Thanks for joining us. If you've got a question, again, it's really easy to get that into us. The number is 501-381-5228. Send a text or leave a voicemail, and maybe we'll use your question on the air next week.
The GenWealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com, or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.